Fox Valley. A traveler received a leaf paper airplane, or a leaf airplane rather, from a young anima boy named Maru, who was hoping to recruit them as a Fox Point ranger on Vulpes. They arrived at Fox Point Village, where they overheard the villagers talking about how Maru had pranked them. At the top of the fox tree, they found Maru sleeping. Author's note: a couple of classes get exclusive dialogue here. When explorers arrive at Fox Point Village, they notice that the anima villagers look similar to Rondo. Ho Young immediately recognizes the villagers as fellow anima, although for some reason, Laura gets no anima exclusive dialogue. Even the Nova and Flora classes get some dialogue as non as get the same dialogue as non-grandis classes. On the other hand, when Shade gets Maru's letter, he wonders what the point of him going is when no one is going to remember him, but he decides that it can't hurt. Spoiler, it does in fact hurt greatly. When he arrives at Fox Point Village, he notes that it's still raining, meaning that a fox is crying somewhere, which is implied to be Moonbeam. Shade gets some exclusive dialogue at the end of the theme dungeon that changes depending on whether he's finished his level 200 quest or not. Depending on the dialogue, it could be the case that the rain isn't actually being caused by Moonbeam, making it a bit of a continuity error. Although you could also interpret that as the rain is being caused by Maru. In his dream, Maru was speaking to an anima girl named Sinnoh about the most recent prank that he had pulled. Sinnoh told him that the fox god must like him, even after all the pranks that he has pulled. Suddenly, Sinnoh began to grow unnaturally tired and left to go fall asleep. Maru followed Sinnoh across the clouds, where he found her missing. Just then, a great roll of thunder and lightning boomed, with the fox god appearing before Maru, just before he awoke with a start. Author's note: despite his name, or her name, the fox god is almost certainly not an ancient god, as they are meant to be dormant while the Transcendents are still around. Similar to how Rhine is worshipped as the goddess of time, it's more likely that Sinnoh is a powerful spirit whom the fox anima worship as a god. I've also had it in my head for a while about the idea of an offspring of an ancient god and a mortal, and it's possible that Sinnoh might be a demigod of some sort too. If nothing else, I really hope that we get a unique demigod class for Grandis, similar to how we have Zero as a transcendent class. After he woke up, he noticed the traveler watching him, and learned that they had gotten his letter. Author's note: Maru recognizes Ho Young as an anima, but not Laura. He then decided to test them by measuring their skills and transported them to the Blossom Valley, where an anima boy named Lumps was surrounded by noxious froggies. After defeating them all, the traveler approached Lumps, only to find that he was actually Maru in disguise. Maru then made them an official Fox Point Ranger and tasked them with carrying out the Fox God's will to protect the village. The traveler asked how Maru knew the fox god's will, and so Maru explained how he had been saved from vicious squirrels long ago by the fox god, who had made him promise to keep himself and the village safe. Ever since then, he had been able to see the fox god in his dreams, with whom he would often talk and play with. Author's note: Maru doesn't know that Sinnoh is the fox god, or that Sinnoh and the fox god are the same person at this point in time. Maru then gave the traveler their first official mission, which was to collect Flutterbuzz powder in order to create a sneezing powder to prank the villagers. Before the traveler set out, however, Maru told them that they needed fox ears so that they wouldn't scare the villagers. Author's note: Shade gets some exclusive dialogue here, in which he recalls how the villagers had given him fox ears as a gift and wonders whether it's time to use those, although he never does. When the traveler asked Maru why he couldn't have asked a friend to help him, Maru explained that he had tried recruiting the other children, but he had been left alone since they don't want to hang out with him because of his pranks. Though he explained that his pranks were meant to be training for defending the village. With no one to play with him, he had sent the leaf airplane and had asked the fox god to let it reach somebody who would be his friend. Feeling pity for him, the traveler agreed to collect palm puff leaves in order to create fox ears for themselves. The two then spread the sneezing powder on the villagers, which angered them, but made Maru laugh. Once they returned to the top of the fox tree, they heard thunder and saw that a massive storm was brewing. Maru attempted to warn the villagers, but they dismissed his words as another prank. The traveler and Maru then attempted to make their way across Fox Valley and fought their way past the spiny puff bushes in order to get there. Maru then showed them a tiny tree, which he believed would act as an umbrella to shield the village. He then had the traveler gather nettled squirrel tree nuts and vicious squirrel tree nuts in order to make magic fertilizer, which caused the tree to grow large enough to shield the village. However, the storm suddenly grew larger, and a lightning blast completely destroyed the tree. Realizing that the town was going to be flooded, Maru decided to evacuate the villagers to the top of the fox tree. They led the frightened villagers to safety, who realized that Maru had been telling the truth. However, the water levels continued to rise, and so Maru decided to go see the fox god in order to ask for her help. He and the traveler encountered furious or ferocious, snowy and stormy schmarmies. I do not know how to say that name. While climbing up and fought their way past them. As they kept climbing, Maru lost his footing and hurt his hand, and so the traveler carried him the rest of the way until they reached the domain of the fox god. However, they were stopped by the Sky Guardian and his Cloud Guardians, who refused to let outsiders through. Author's note: Young gets some exclusive dialogue here, in which the Sky Guardian is surprised to see him and asks why he's come down to the secular world, suggesting that he recognizes Ho Young as a sage and wonders why he's left the realm of the sages. The fact that he asks why Ho Young has come down implies that the realm of the sages exists somewhere even higher than the clouds where the fox god dwells. What's a bit confusing is that the hermitage where Ho Young and Tai Yu live is at the foot of a mountain, even though it's also part of the realm of the sages. If I had to guess, the hermitage still exists in the realm of the sages, but the invisible portal that lets you enter exists at the base of a mountain. Hopefully, we learn more this winter since the realm of the sages, Shangri-La, is the next area after Odium. While we're on the topic of the Sky Guardian and the Cloud Guardians, shortly after the end of the Black Mage update, a new animated short was released about Magnus in order to hype up the Darmor arc. That short featured a battle that the former Kaiser and Magnus were fighting in together. What's interesting is that the two of them were leading the Nova army in a battle against the Cloud Guardians. It was a bit hard to see because the scene was so dimly lit, but there was one shot that clearly showed dozens of dead Nova and Cloud Guardians lying in a pool of blood. In the battle, Magnus was seen flying away and leaving Kaiser alone and surrounded by enemies. I have no clue why the Nova were fighting against the Fox God's forces, and I honestly have no speculations that come to mind, but I do feel like Magnus abandoning Kaiser might be an event that caused him to be exiled by the Nova. With no choice, they fought the Guardian and forced their way through. While the traveler held the Guardians off, Maru encountered the sleeping Fox God and woke her up. The Fox God was shocked that she hadn't seen the storm coming and immediately used her powers to stop the flooding. Maru then thanked the traveler for their help and sent them back home. Meanwhile, Sinnoh discovered a dark sigil belonging to Jaren Darmor's apostles and realized that her blocked vision and the storm had been caused by the same thing. She then decided to go chat with the elders up top in order to discuss what had happened. Author's note: just like with Cosm in Detective Rave's case notes, this is a reference to the elders from the realm of the sages. It's unknown who the sigil belongs to, but considering the devastating storm, it's possible that it belongs to Havoc, the first apostle of lightning. Havoc's lightning is red, but it could be that the writers hadn't settled on that detail until the Sternium storyline. Most likely, however, this is the work of a new apostle whom we haven't met. Laura gets some exclusive dialogue here, in which the fox god notes that the energy in Laura's bell seemed very familiar. This is because the bell had been created by the elders. Shade gets an exclusive scene at the end of this storyline, in which he decides to go visit Moonbeam, as he thinks that it doesn't feel right to just walk away now that the crisis is over. While he's headed from the fox tree to the village, Maru is recruiting the other anima children to the Fox Point Rangers. The children ask Maru where Shade is, to which he tells them that Shade has already gone back home. If Shade has finished his level 200 quest, Maru notes that Shade looks a lot like Moonbeam's guardian spirit, to which Moonbeam says that Tumbleweed has mentioned that her guardian spirit looks a lot like people that he's met in Maple World, as they all have no ears and no tails. However, Moonbeam also notes that Shade seemed very familiar. Moonbeam's guardian spirit takes on the form of Shade, the person whom she misses the most, even if she doesn't remember him or why she misses him. If Shade hasn't finished his level 200 quest, Moonbeam offers to help with the rebuilding efforts, though she adds that she doesn't know whether she'll just get in the way, since she doesn't have her spirit. Regardless of whether you've completed the level 200 quest or not, the dialogue converges here, and the kids head out in order to help the adults rebuild the village. I mentioned at the beginning of this section that it's still raining for Shade when he arrives at the village. The intention behind it was that Moonbeam is crying because she's lost her guardian spirit, but the fact that it's still raining, even when she has her new spirit, creates a continuity error. It's possible to explain it by saying that Maru was crying because he has no friends, but most likely, it's probably just an oversight on the writer's parts. Shade then arrives as soon as Moonbeam and the others leave, after which he goes back to the fox tree and carves another mark of companionship on it, just as he and Moonbeam had done right before he went to Maple World for the first time, though he knows that the mark is going to disappear when he goes back. However, he decides to take comfort in the fact that everyone is safe now, and the fact that he'll always remember them, even though they won't remember him.